Today we'll do a quick talk about The Last Battle or Le Dernier Combat by filmmaker Luc Besson. So the movie is from 1983, and Luc Besson, best known for his films such as Léon, The Professional, Lucy, which I have not seen, Fifth Element, which I love Fifth Element so much, Valerian, which I hate. This movie is just a complete meme, and I kind of laughed that I was a bit excited for this, but it was absolutely abysmal. I have not seen any of his other movies, I'll be honest. But I just watched The Last Battle. And it was very interesting because I was very much looking forward to it. I believe it was his first film, I'll say. It stars Pierre Jolivet. I assume it's French. And yeah, he was really great in it. Looks like he's not in many things. But as a director, he has directed quite a few things. Nothing I really know. But I've heard of Simple Mortal before. I know it's a drama thriller. I've heard of it before. I don't know where I've heard of it, but I've heard of it. And then, so Last Battle, I'll be very quick about this because it's a very confusing movie and it's very straightforward at the same time. As the logline says here, it is a post-apocalyptic film where people are rendered mute. Nobody can speak. There's only 2 lines of dialogue in this movie in a very cool scene in the middle of the movie. But yeah, it's a very quiet movie, and I really do love post-apocalyptic movies. As a big sci-fi fan, of course, it's part of the sci-fi genre, I would say. And this movie does it very, very well with the little quirks that it has with the post-apocalyptic world. I think the world building's very fun in a quirky, silly black and white way, and I say that because I think the black and white really lends to it because a lot of the locations feel very weird. They feel very staged, but I think the black and white kind of lends to the dirty and grittiness to it, that it kind of makes up for that. And I think that a lot of what's happening on screen is very it's very rough, and it's very, I don't want to say realistic because there are definitely a lot of moments in this movie that are very not realistic. It's very dirty. It's very grimy, trying to be post-apocalyptic. But at the same time, there's a decent amount of humor to it and silliness to the entire thing that it kind of makes it more palatable. Because the concept of having nobody speak is a little pretentious. But I think the fact that he kind of knows that and he plays it off fairly well, and some of the moments that really are using that mute as a plot point, I do think it works rather well. So going into spoilers here, just full on spoilers, I do just want to analyze a bit of the film because I literally watched it less than an hour ago, and I kind of just want to spew my thoughts and trying to figure out what happened right here with my words. And so starting at the beginning, I really did like the scene where you have that guy. He takes the smaller guy out of his trunk and everybody attaches their bottles to him. He goes through this tunnel to find a source of water, fills up all the water, and he comes back. It's very apocalyptic where people get super animalistic and really do or die what they have to do to get basic necessities. And I think that's one thing where it's everyone in these movies are fighting for basic necessities, but they're very nonchalant about everything. It feels like this world has been happening to them for a long time. And I don't know. But I did like that scene. And there's a lot of those small moments of weird post-apocalyptic things happening where they have to do it to survive, that just the detail in some of those moments are just fun to uncover. And then again, adding to the silliness, right as that's happening, our main character, who's just credited as the man, he builds a plane. He stabs the guy who was using that little guy to get water. He was abusing him, and then he just gets in his plane and flies off. And again, the way it was shot as well is very silly. It reminds me of Snoopy and Charlie Brown, where it's clearly shot. He's very clearly not actually flying. And then you have, him flying away in a plane in a chase scene in a post-apocalyptic world. And you're not really going to get the most gritty, realistic version of that story with this kind of a budget, but it was still the best it could be in the charming, silly way this movie is made. And so when he leaves that that area. He kind of stumbles upon a new area that most of the remainder of the film is set. And the main pieces are he's in like an abandoned town. It's completely worn down and he's trying to survive, just going to a bar, just finding a bunch of alcohol and drinking, trying to set up a camp. He has like a painting that he really likes. But then you have the character called the Brute, played by Jean Reno, acclaimed actor and a Luc Besson regular. And oh, I just pressed on Leon. I meant to go back to the last battle. Yeah, and then you have Jean Reno as the Brute, and he's just literally, his whole role is just trying to mess people up. Like, we have the man, the Brute, and the other guy who, I don't really know his name. I'll just call him, like, the scientist or something. I wonder what he's credited as in here, actually. He's credited, the doctor. Okay, I was very close. But, so he does this thing where he goes up and he looks like he's trying to sell something to the doctor. And then the doctor makes him go far away from the door. And then he very quickly grabs all the goodies, brings them back in to make sure that Jean Reno doesn't get into the house. And then Jean Reno sets up a trap to try to get in, but then he actually had another cage. And again, another one of those fun post-apocalyptic details that just, yeah, adds to the charm of the movie. But the reason I say why it's gritty but silly at the same time, because of moments like those and Jean Reno's character, it's like, it feels like in this world, they could be so much more vicious in what they're trying to get, in like trying to survive, where it's like, if it was post-apocalyptic world, blah, 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 blah. If it was a post-apocalyptic world, people would like go to any lengths to try to figure it out. But it seems like he's setting up Bugs Bunny traps to try to like figure out how to, I don't even know what he wanted with him. Maybe he knew that he had the girl locked up in the end and that's what he wanted, but still. Yeah, he's just there to kind of mess things up. And then he had a battle very quickly and injured our main character, the man. And then the man gets taken in by the doctor and they kind of develop this friendship. And I think some of the best scenes are as they're building their friendship. And I think, hands down, the best scene in the movie, the moment in the movie where it's like humanity is shown the most, where it's like genuinely two people connecting, is when the doctor has this mask thing where it pumps a gas and they're able to utter a few words. There's literally 2 lines that are said in this movie, 2 words that are said in this movie by these 2 characters as they're passing this inhaler mask thing that allows them to speak just like a little. And it's just like the most breathy, faint word of him saying, bonjour. And funny story, when I went into this movie, the only place I could find this movie was on archive.com. And it was quite a rough copy of it. And when I was going into it, I realized there was no option for like closed captioning. I was like, oh gosh, am I gonna have to watch this movie in French? I was like, oh, I could still do that. I speak French. It might just be a little tough, but and then I got into it, and then I realized there was no dialogue in this movie, and I was like, wow, this is the most universal movie out there. Anybody could have watched this. My worries were not justified, and so yeah, that was funny. But again, like I said, in the stripped down apocalyptic world, that moment of humanity of them sharing that was just really, really great. And the movie doesn't give a lot of answers. The plot is very straightforward, and it's difficult to find any metaphor for the grand scheme of everything. But at the same time, it does feel like there's some history behind this that he's just not explaining, like why the world is the way it is, what event led to this apocalypse, and yeah, why can't they speak? Of course, there's no answers given, but it just uses that just structure as a way to tell this rather simple story, but use those elements to kind of just have fun, honestly. And I think that's great because I love post-apocalyptic worlds. I love sci-fi. Yeah, I've said that a million times. Sci-fi is my favorite genre. And just this movie is an example of just using those elements, not explaining it, but just using them for the benefit of creating a cool product. Because honestly, yeah, if you have something that is just so rich in either the story or just the cool concepts that are within the story, like this movie does, then yeah, you don't need the entire context of explaining how everything happened. You don't need to explain everything. It's just if the thing that's on screen is engaging and interesting, then it works. And I think that's the reason why this works. And I read a few of these Letterboxd comments right before I started doing this. And a lot of them were like, you can tell this is a Luc Besson film without even like having any dialogue. It's just, yeah, the way he moves the camera, the way that it has this silliness to it. Just like in, yeah, Fifth Element. Love Fifth Element. And Leon as well. Just there's just those he's a filmmaker who has these very, yeah, his concepts are just great. They're really, really solid, and he's able to seamlessly have this lightheartedness to his films, at least for the two that I've seen. I've seen Leon and I've seen The Fifth Element, so that's all I can really speak for. But yeah, he's just, I gotta watch more of his movies. I never really heard too much about Lucy. Oh, I guess I was praising him so much about Leon, Fifth Element. I forgot about Valerian for a second. I feel like we can all forgive him for Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. But I don't know. Is Lucy even supposed to be any good? I remember this is the one where it's like, oh, you can unlock 100% of your brain. It's like Limitless. But I mean, Limitless was kind of a fun meme to watch, so maybe I should watch Lucy and just see how it is. Maybe some of the Luc Besson charm will rub off into it. But alas, we're not talking about Lucy. We're talking about The Last Battle. I don't really have too much else to say about it. It was just, yeah, a lot of fun to play around in this post-apocalyptic world. And I think that, oh yeah, a lot of the, or what am I trying to say? The scene where a lot of fish fell from the sky and just random debris fell from the sky just added to that weirdness and apocalypse-ness of the movie. And again, it's just something inexplainable, something that happens. And it feels like he was writing the script and he was like, oh, it'll just be funny if these fish fall from the sky. And like, that's how they get their food. They're so desperate, they have to wait for the food to fall from the sky. And I don't know, it just adds to the, yeah, apocalyptic nature of the movie. But yeah, it was a weird one. I enjoyed it. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. So